on Central City 1 hour free parking because we have a deputation on that, and if I could invite the Central City Business Association to come to the table. Brendan Chase. Welcome, Brendan.
Mayor Dalzell, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to you about this. Actually, I haven't come to make a speech about it, but I am speaking without the benefit of hearing your council officer speak. So the Central City Business Association executive met on Tuesday, and we discussed the 1 hour free parking incentive that's been operating, particularly in the Litchfield Street parking building since it opened. We'd like to express our thanks to Council for that incentive. We think it's probably been helpful, although we are conscious that there's no benchmark to read what difference that incentive has made, because it was offered from the day the building was opened. The council report says that refers to 60% occupancy in the building in December, which we think is a little misleading. My office is actually right next door to the car park building, and I casually observe the number of car parks that are available for use at any given point in time during the day, and during the last month at least, that number is generally set between 500 and 600 available, so unoccupied. So the 60% occupancy in December is misleading. Its occupancy level is really between 30 and 40%. Reading the figures that are quoted and for the cost of this incentive, 22,500 hours and a 3-month trial, which has cost $90,000, when if the incentive that's offered across your other off-street car parking is deducted, and maybe if $2 an hour was applied to that, that would reduce the sum by $25,000 to a net $65,000 incentive cost in the Litchfield Street parking building. By my calculation, that's under $550 a day. The occupancy levels suggest that there hasn't been a massive uptake in car parking, although I suspect that the occupancy rate is likely to be better during the winter when it's wetter. But the council, in providing this incentive, I'm sure that the intention was to attract people back into the central city, especially to the retail precinct, but also to the other surrounding environment, the courts, which have a lot of visitors, and the Avon River precinct. Considering the 3 options that your officer has suggested, our clear preference is for option 2, that the incentive remain in place for the next 3 months while you conduct your community consultation. We think that stopping the incentive at very short notice to the public would be disruptive and confusing, and by our analysis of the figures, it hasn't cost an enormous amount anyway. What is an enormous amount is the vacancy that's sitting there, the unused occupancy. And I think that, when you read that, the true cost seems of the incentive is minimal. For example, if there's 500 car parks sitting vacant in that building at any given time, not earning $2.80 an hour, and say 4 hours was reasonable to expect that it might be occupied, not 8 but 4, that would be lost revenue of $6,160 a day, times that by 120 over the period of the incentive, and that's $739,000 that you haven't earned. You haven't given away, you just haven't earned it. And that is enormous, and we think wasted capacity. So we would encourage you to continue the incentive whilst you carry out your community consultation. We don't think that free car parking is necessarily something that should be offered indefinitely, but at this time, with your asset, parking asset in that block, it's been a little hard to get to with roadworks on Durham and Montreal Street. Valentine's are building a new building immediately to its right. The footpath is barricaded, you have to cross the road to get around it. Construction is about to start on the farmers market to its left or west, and to its north the Guthrie Centre is a construction site. So almost 2/3 or at least half of that block is under construction for the next 12 to 15 months at least. And I think the council owes it to itself to throw the doors open and encourage people to use it, because the patronage, I believe, needs to be built. It's not just going to suddenly appear. On a slightly separate matter, I'd just like to thank council for making a car park at grade camper van friendly. The Central City Business Association worked in conjunction with Christchurch, New Zealand, to advocate council officers to allow this and promote it, and that is now the case, and its patronage is significant. So people hiring camper vans aren't just driving straight out of the city, it's actually being promoted to them, and that's worthwhile custom now coming in to the Central City.
Great. Thank you very much. We've got time for questions. Does anyone have any questions? No? Pauline?
Thanks, Brendan. You seem to be focusing very much on just the Litchfield Street car park. Is that actually where you're thinking that the council should focus and perhaps not carry on with the other 1 hour free? Are you happy to sort of isolate that out?
We are happy to isolate that out, yes. I mean, there is a sea of at-grade car parking, and I think it's a real issue that whilst all that lies there, to expect people to drive in to vertical car parking is probably a wee bit of wishful thinking. I think it's a natural human instinct to park out in the open if that option's available. To the west of my office, I sit and watch during the day the old Restart car park where people drive in and pay $5 an hour from the get-go to park. I often go out and point out to people who park in my car parks that there's actually free car parking next door. They don't seem to be aware of it, and some don't even want to use it, even knowing that it's free. So I think a lot more promotion needs to be done about that. Your other car park sites are out a wee bit more peripheral, across the river. I'm not sure that that's quite so important that the incentive continues to be offered on those, but I think in the retail precinct it would be very helpful.
Actually, you've just raised a point that I just wonder, pay $5 rather than go to the free one. And yes, whether people realise that it is, and maybe there needs to be better signage in that regard. But I wonder whether there's an element of, the earthquake experience still sitting there in the background, and maybe we need to be reinforcing the message about, the safety measures that have been built into the new car park building.
I think that would be a very important message. I do, and I think rather than just offer the incentive, it really does need to be marketed more strongly, so that there's more take up, even just to raise awareness whether people use it all the time or not, because Otherwise it could just continue to sit there vacant,
Yeah.
which won't provide the return that you want.
Yeah, I used to use it all the time back in the day, you know, before the earthquakes, but yeah, maybe it's, maybe we need to do some thinking about that. But we're going to move straight on to this item now, so
Right.
we'll be able to discuss.
I mean, it is a far superior design to what was there. It's very easy to get in and out of.
Yeah.
It's light.
And it's light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has a
Yeah.
little oppressive feel, but yeah.
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 The low ceiling.
Yeah, it feels safe.
Great.
People probably need to experience that.
Yeah. All right, Brendan, well, look, thank you very much for your time, and it's much appreciated. So we'll move straight